please, Mr. Reporter, could you please write a story about our issue paper? Or please, can we please have just an inch of your editorial? Just give me a little piece of your editorial space, please. And one day we were like, why are we begging other media outlets for a little slice of their pie? Let's become our own media. And that's eventually what became Complete Colorado. Although to the progressive press, we are conservative press. We might as well just be Trumpsters, right?
But to Colorado's Republicans.
But to Colorado's Republican Party, we are Rhino press. We are Republican in name only, and we are traitors to their cause. And so, in my mind, that means we're doing something right.
We're trying.
Right.
It is a news source for unaffiliated Coloradans, people who want both sides, who want to see something that's incredible. So what is the state of local media? Is it crumbling? We're going to find out. But first, like and subscribe our channel. Click that little bell icon for notifications and find the Devil's Advocate podcast on your favorite listening app. Mike Krause is the editor of CompleteColorado.com. How many years have you guys been around now?
John, the Complete Colorado has been around about 17 years now, but it's been different iterations of Complete Colorado. It started out
depending if you can get up in the morning
depending on who felt like doing what on what day of the week. But it went from being kind of one thing, and it has evolved into something that looks fairly different than what it started out as.
What did it start out as?
So it started off as fairly looking like, and this is going to date us, right?
People aren't even going to know this reference.
In fact,
Go ahead.
This is one of the reasons we changed the site. It started off as a state version of the Drudge Report. Right, and if you remember, at one time the Drudge Report was a real thing. I mean, it broke news. It was
for those people who still have who didn't have dial-up AOL service. The Drudge Report, back when Clinton was president, leaked a lot of great stories that got stifled from editors, somehow got published on Drudge Report. It broke the Monica Lewinsky story. Without Drudge, that never would have happened. So it was a real news source read by millions and millions every day. It was ugly. It was visually just black and white and had links to stories.
It was visually unappealing with just links.
Much like you and I.
Links to stories, like you and I.
Therefore, Complete Colorado.
And it was huge, and it was interesting that the fact that it broke the Lewinsky story, Drudge, there's actually a guy named Drudge, Matt Drudge, the mainstream press, the progressive press, and the press hated the Drudge Report because it did stuff that they didn't want to see done, right? So you're right, it was taking stories that were stifled, and they would magically make their way to Drudge, and he would just put up this link on this ugly little site, and the next thing you know, it was a national story. Right.
The Monica Lewinsky story was written up by, I don't know if it was Newsweek or the New York Times, but the story wouldn't run, and it got spiked. And somehow the reporter got pissed off enough that he dropped the story to Drudge, and it forced the story open. It really had an incredible impact on news. There was finally another way to go at it.
Right. And so we at the time, we were looking to, we had talked about this for years at Independence Institute, right, about becoming our own media. Because for years, what had happened is we would send out our op-eds on an editorial syndicate, and we would ask, please, Mr. Newspaper Editor, this is back when newspapers mattered too, by the way, please, Mr. Newspaper Editor, could you please run our editorial? Or please, Mr. Reporter, could you please write a story about our issue paper? Or please, can we please have just an inch of your editorial? Just give me a little piece of your editorial space, please. And one day we were like, why are we begging other media outlets for a little slice of their pie? Let's become our own media. And that's eventually what became Complete Colorado. Although first, and we were just talking about this before the show, we started off, it was not Complete Colorado, it was actually the Colorado News Agency was our first attempt at this. We had a reporter.
I forget about that.
Yeah, and we had an editor and a reporter, and she was covering the State House. And it things like this are just hard to sustain.
So
right?
Let me give for those who are geeks, Colorado politics is kind of Colorado's local news for legislative news. Reporters down at the Capitol, opinion pieces. we thought, you know what? We need a news service that does AP-style good reporting. And we brought in some terrific ringers, and we started the Colorado News Agency. Our hope was we do stories, maybe other newspapers would pick up those stories. Instead of just picking up the AP version, there might be another version. It was a terrific project, but it did not have, how to put it, a benefactor who would keep it going, and we just couldn't keep it rolling.
No one really seemed all that concerned with ponying up to this. It was important to us.
You're right.
But I don't think a lot of other people got the idea.
We learned a lot, though.
But we learned a lot.
We learned a lot of what Colorado media misses.
Right.
We learned a lot about stories that should be out there that nobody does. And we also, the big lesson I think we learned, tell me if I'm wrong, was that all we need to do is good AP-style journalism. We don't need to run, political pieces. We don't need to say we're doing it from the right or the left. Just tell the story, but tell the stories that other reporters don't want to tell.
Yeah, if you can tell some stories that other people aren't telling, don't want to tell, or tell it a different way, then yes. The other thing we learned is that just doing good, straightforward, straight-ahead reporting is the way to do it. The other thing is that it's very difficult to build an audience. It's very difficult to retain your audience. It's very easy to lose an audience.
I know how difficult it is to keep an audience as you grab that clicker.
I've been astonished at how long you've been able to keep this television show running, actually, to be honest with you. And so we learned a lot from that. And then the next, so that kind of went by the wayside. And the next iteration was Complete Colorado, the original Complete Colorado, which was just a Colorado version of that Drudge, that really ugly.
It looked like
It looked
Drudge.
exactly like the Drudge Report. We just copied Drudge. And that was it. And it was actually, at the time, Drudge was a thing. So Complete Colorado was a thing because it was the state version of the Drudge Report. And it gathered an audience fairly quickly. And people went to it and people read it, just like people went and read Drudge. But then what the other aspect of becoming your own media is we also needed a place to publish not just links to media or stories or articles. We needed a place to publish our own stuff that we did. So we created Page 2, which was a site for us. So we actually
had two websites.
This is two websites, and it just worked out this way. Sometimes things just evolve in a certain way. So we ended up with two sites. And at the time when we came up with Page 2, we were thinking, I believe it was the New York Post had Page 6, which was the gossip page that people read. I mean, people read Page 6. So we were like, oh, that's a cool. And I remember a programmer, the guy who was putting it together for us, he goes, why do you want two sites? I'm like, dude, could you just make us the site? And so for years we linked to our own stuff on Complete Colorado, right? And so what was happening is we had a functioning journalism project going on.
You had one page that was dedicated to aggregating stories.
From all over the state, from all over the
state. That did original content.
Our content, our reporters and Independence Institute commentary, and then guest authors.
Right.
Yes, right. And but one, there was a dichotomy because one people went to every day, and that was the Drudge style aggregator. The other one, we had to send stuff out to people. People didn't come to our stuff. And so finally, at the beginning of this year, 2025, we finally felt we were in a position, we had a big enough audience, we were so tired of, we were just, this Drudge style aggregator was being held together with duct tape, literally on the back end. And sometimes, I remember one time about a year and a half ago, the site just disappeared. It just went away. It was a blank screen. And I panicked and I called the guy who hosted it and he goes, I can rebuild it from last night.
I can rebuild it from last night.
So we had to rebuild it. And so anyway, we merged the two. And now we have Complete Colorado, which has our original investigative reporting, our commentary, and then still links to stories. But it's one site, and it's modern looking.
Let me ask you about the name.
But the brand is the important part, right?
The name CompleteColorado.com was very well tuned. It wasn't, hey, here's a bunch of news.
No.
It was Complete Colorado.
This is Colorado
and you
news.
pass on a lot of stories as editor that are just not Colorado stories. Tell me about that. Because
Yes.
I think that is a niche that is really
So
unique.
we made a conscious decision that our niche is what we call Colorado on down. So it's the state of Colorado. And of course, it also counts in D.C. So like a Supreme Court case about, if a Colorado case makes it to the high court, That's a Colorado story. We can do that. That's fine. But we're not doing national news on Complete Colorado. It is Colorado on down to water districts. So it is everything from the legislature down to the tiniest little taxing district that no one's ever heard of. And so it is Complete Colorado. It's all aspects of the state, as much as we can hit. And the idea has always been that this is about Colorado. So yes, over the years we have passed on a lot of things where, the temptation is always, the big focus in the United States is on DC, right? And all the journalists live in DC and New York, and they focus in on that one thing. And it's very difficult sometimes. It's tempting to start talking about that stuff. But we have always stayed very true to the idea that we are a Colorado news source.
And also paywall free.
This is the other.
And that's been a real advantage, because it's hard to get free news from different sources. And so you aggregate stories, you do it a couple times a day from around the state, and you've got to make sure you find a way that people can actually read the story.
Right.
That's gotten a lot easier, I'm assuming, over the years.
Yeah, actually it's become extremely difficult to do this anymore, because the traditional newspapers, right, the actual old school broadsheet newspapers, which all have online versions now, are almost exclusively paywalled. They're online versions. A lot of the digital news organizations are paywalled. There's subscriptions. They want you to, they want your email at the very least before they'll let you read a story and things like that. We've made a conscious decision to try to only send people to stories that they can open and read or watch or listen to. And so, yes, paywall free. It gets harder and harder and harder, because you actually have to go find things that if they don't open for me, they're not going to open for you. And so we have to pass on a lot of things once again. So this does get more and more difficult, yes.
But with the advent of more citizen journalism, of smaller newspapers out there are so many stories in Colorado that never make it into the big papers. They make it into Complete Colorado. And the paywall thing is probably part of that, because a lot of those papers want you to read them. Hey, we're still out here. We're out in the plains. And there's something going on in Lyman. There's something going on in Grand Junction. You need to know about it.
The harder you have to go look for things in order to put them up, the more you find things like what you're describing. So you're not just dependent on, it's not that I wouldn't link to the Denver Post. I just can't take the chance because their paywall is unpredictable, right? But yes, there's actually there's bloggers who write about things in places like Lyman, and they want to be linked to, right? They don't want a paywall up on their site, and so people can go and they're gonna see stuff. You're gonna find some new sources of news is what you're gonna find at Complete, as well as some well-established ones, and we've also helped some citizen journalists gain a foothold and find an audience in Colorado, and some of them are thriving now.
The other part that's been great is, now that it's been around for 17 years, there is a library. So the Denver Gazette does this great thing, because they also own the old Rocky Mountain News archives. So every day they put on a page of the front page of the Rocky Mountain News from some previous year. And it goes back to the 1800s. It's just really cool stuff. In the same way, when you're doing this kind of work enough and some politician says something, you're like, wait a second, I remember him saying something opposite just 10 years ago. Well, fortunately, you're old, but now you have 17 years of that to be able to do flashbacks and say, this is not a new issue in Colorado.
No, this is actually, since there's constantly new people arriving and there's constantly new people finding Complete, it's great to have a catalog. I mean, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of stories on the site now. And yes, if you've got enough institutional knowledge, you can go, oh, yeah, we did that. That's 10 years ago. There was something completely relevant to this thing that's going on today, and you can flash back to it. Yes.
It's one of the biggest losses when career reporters, political reporters, retire or get laid off. The Lynn Bartles of the world. These are the folks who have that history, who can remember what's going on. And it's there. All you have to do is find it. But you need somebody who can remember, I've seen this before. No, or the governor said something completely opposite 10 years ago when he was in Congress. Those kind of things.
You got to have some, it really helps to have some years under your belt. doing this, and the institutional knowledge does help. And it does help to still have a memory. Thank God. It really,
enjoy it while you can.
It really does. But yes, you're quite right. In fact, one of my jokes is that like a new reporter moving to Colorado and just going to work thinks that Tabor's a shopping center on the 16th Street Mall in Denver, right? They don't even know what it is. But when you have institutional knowledge, right, now you can write competently about a very difficult topic to talk about, by the way, to people because they don't understand it. But with some institutional knowledge and some memory, you can say, oh, I remember 10 years ago when this happened and it affects us today.
Complete is not just print media. It's not just text. You now link to a lot of things like this incredible program and other programs. So there are podcasts, there are video casts on different topics. It's really a one-stop shop for all things Colorado.
It's a one-stop shop for Colorado political news in a variety of formats and in a variety of different genres. So yes, we have video, we have podcasts, we have traditional journalism, radio shows, audio, all that. And of course now with social media, you can just link directly to social media and bypass reporters, who like to give context to things.
Put in context. So there are other sites out there that do Colorado coverage. Rocky Mountain Voice does local coverage. Colorado Times Recorder. One is very much on the right. The other one's very much on the left. What's the philosophy behind Complete?
That's a really good question. So the dominant media in Colorado, which you call the mainstream press in Colorado, is for the most part leans generally progressive in their coverage and their worldview of their newsrooms. It just does. It doesn't mean they do bad journalism. It just means it comes from a certain point of view. In order to be considered, here's what I like to say, that Complete Colorado's journalism is not overtly conservative. It's simply not progressive. So it looks different than most of what you get. And so to the progressive press, that's all it really takes to be conservative in Colorado. Is just not be, as I've said, all you have to do to be considered conservative is not be progressive. All right.
But also, Complete is not. But we're not MAGA red.
Our coverage is not overtly intended to be conservative. We have an editorial stance in favor of certain things, like free markets, gun rights, personal liberties.
Oh, so you are right-wing crazy.
Things like that, which would be considered, I would say, mainstream, unaffiliated, slightly right of center philosophy. But it's certainly not like a conservative, certainly not MAGA. In fact, one of the funny things is we are, to the progressive press, we are conservative press. We might as well just be Trumpsters, right?
But to Colorado's Republicans.
But to Colorado's Republican Party, we are Rhino press. We are Republican in name only, and we are traitors to their cause. And so, in my mind, that means we're doing something right.
We're trying.
Right.
It is a news source for unaffiliated Coloradans, people who want both sides, who want to see something that's incredible.
If you enjoyed that conversation, by all means, click one of these other great programs. We have the best conversations with the most fascinating Coloradans. And subscribe to our channel. Just click down below and hit that little bell button too. You don't want to miss a single show.